Welcome to the Popish Plot. I'm Mike.
I'm Jessica.
And I'm Nate.
And this is the Gunpowder Plot.
Remember,
the 5th of November, the gunpowder treason and plot. I know of no reason why the gunpowder treason should ever be forgot.
Because it's not that important. It failed. It's a minor plot point in English history.
Actually, it should be remembered because it was a horrible idea.
And I think it has relevance for us today.
Okay.
Is it because you see those masks that people wear because they think it's really cool and they have no idea the history behind it, but it was from that one movie?
No. What's really fun about that is people are trying to make this big anti-corporate statement by wearing Guy Fawkes masks, which they buy from Warner Brothers.
And also, he was a royalist, so, you know.
Well, so, cast your minds back to England.
We're not doing the Scooby-Doo ending.
Oh.
I thought of it more as the Wayne's World thing, but okay.
Yeah, where they did the Scooby-Doo ending.
Well, they did it for other things, too.
So, England, after the Reformation, things are awful.
Do they not have a cuppa?
Well, they do, but if you're Catholic, you have to pay a special tax not to go to church.
Are you sure a cuppa will not solve that? Because
Wait.
I've seen enough British shows to show that a cuppa solves everything.
Listen,
Dead body in your garden? Cuppa.
Listen, I'm not saying that it's not... Let's say you're a recusant and you're being persecuted. It's better to be a recusant under persecution with a cuppa than without a cuppa.
Wait.
But it still doesn't solve being a recusant under persecution.
Not going to church?
You're required to, once a year, go to Anglican service, or you have to pay a hefty fine.
I'm just thinking, currently, I could go to my mass and then still go to another church. And as long as I'm not communing with that other church, I'm technically okay.
So that's a recent development.
Yeah, besides, this is the official state church, and you have to go, and it's things weren't cool then.
Fair enough.
Good Queen Bess, Queen Elizabeth I, was dead. But there was a question because she'd pointedly stayed unmarried. Who was going to be in charge? There were several Stuarts who might have been heirs to the throne. The one who came to the throne was James VI of Scotland, the son of Elizabeth I's great rival, whom she'd killed, Mary, Queen of Scots. But nevertheless, he had the best claim to the throne. And when he became King of England, so he became James VI of Scotland and First of England, they were in personal union through him, but they wouldn't become one country for another century.
Correct.
Yes, very complicated stuff.
Yeah, so at first, Catholics thought they had reason to be glad because it was all kinds of illegal to be a priest in England, and anytime they wanted to, they could just kill you for the crime of being a Catholic priest. And while it wasn't illegal to be a Catholic layperson, again, you had real trouble getting to priests, and you had to pay taxes for being not an Anglican.
Problem was James wanted to keep his head firmly on his shoulders, and he was in a time where everybody was not entirely on his side.
Yeah, so he becomes king in March of 1603. In July 1603, he faces a attempt to kill him and replace him with his daughter called the Main Plot. And after that, he gets a little more paranoid. And then somebody gets the bright idea to send his wife a rosary, and that just completely freaks him out. So in March of 1604, he delivered a really hammering speech where he called Protestantism the true religion and told the Catholics they would give up all plans of ever coming back into power and they should stop having so many kids. And so some people got a little desperate.
Yeah.
There was a fellow, a rather rebellious, kind of cantankerous fellow anyway, named Robert Catesby.
Okay.
And he decides, in order to serve our Lord Jesus Christ, we need to commit mass murder.
Oh, whoa.
I know, right?
I mean, wait. This is against the British? So, I mean, the majority of the world is going to agree at a certain time that, yeah, we should kill the British.
But he's not less British.
Listen, we're also British because, again, they took over everything and,
Look,
Listen, Jess, Jesus tells us to love our enemies.
And at the same time, you have the rule that says anytime you think God is telling you to do something, and it involves something that would, under any other circumstances, be gravely sinful, that's not God.
So,
Listen, I'm not saying they don't have good things. Their tea, in which they put flowers in it, is very nice.
Listen.
I like an Earl Grey.
I am the most Irish person here. We can't hate the British. Hating is anti-Christian.
See, we need to get your Scottish counterpart, because apparently at their football matches, the Scottish chant is "We hate the British more."
Sure.
And I'm the most Anglophile here, and I kind of really want to hope that, at some point in time we can once again be unified with the English.
Amen. Catesby gets together a group of fellow miscreants, and they start plotting really dark stuff. They go to the King of Spain looking for help, but even though Spain and England are technically in a state of war, he wants good relations with James, and later on they would sign the Treaty of London.
Well, James was probably some level of nephew or something, given his mom and being...
At some point in time, these miscreants should have asked themselves, are we the baddies?
They certainly should have asked themselves, what would Jesus do?
Well, they couldn't ask because they couldn't find a priest, because that was illegal. See?
Yes, and nobody was asking themselves what would Jesus do. It wasn't post 1995 America.
They didn't have bracelets yet.
They didn't have the bracelets.
But it's still something all of us should be doing all the time. So,
someday it will be knock over a table.
Yeah, there is a time and a place when it is the job to knock over a table. Absolutely. But let me say this.
Jesus may have taken the only one, though.
But let me say this. I'm absolutely confident there is never a time when the Christian thing to do is to blow up Parliament with the king and everyone else in it. For the 400th anniversary of the Gunpowder Plot, the British TV channel ITV built a replica of the House of Parliament as it existed then.
Okay.
Because even though, spoiler, the Gunpowder Plot failed, but it did burn to the ground in the Great London Fire of 1666.
Okay.
So they built what it looked like then, and they put a bunch of barrels of gunpowder, and they blew the thing to high heaven. If the Gunpowder Plot had worked, it would have killed hundreds of people.
Not just the people in Parliament, but people in and
the
around.
The hundreds of people in Parliament.
Oh, okay, but I'm saying, you blow a building up.
Sure. There's going to be some collateral damage.
Yeah.
But, so, Catesby and his group, their plan is, we're going to kill the king and replace him. Except, there's a lot of powerful people who really don't want Catholics to replace the king with a Catholic stooge. No. So we can't just kill the king. We're going to have to kill the king and the Parliament and most of the Anglican clergy who serve in the House of Lords.
Oh, see, this is the problem. Once you get 5 steps in to make it work, it's too complicated.
and seriously, they've got a plan A, and they might even have a plan B, but I'm still not seeing plan 2.
Well, here's the thing. It came within a hair of working.
Well, because part 1.
Well, because they got the undercroft, the basement beneath the Parliament, they got that rented to them.
Okay.
They snuck in many barrels of gunpowder.
Okay.
And the British, the English, there were no British then, the English were none the wiser until a letter was received by a guy named Baron Monteagle warning him, hey, something bad is going to happen on this date, so you probably shouldn't show up.
I hate that letter.
And
I'm just saying, if you're in for murdering people, you don't tell the one guy who might technically be Catholic in Parliament, hey, we're doing something.
Yeah,
seriously.
I'm gonna have to say, I strongly discourage anybody from committing mass murder. However,
it's usually right out.
At the point at which you are going to be in for committing a relatively indiscriminate mass murder, you really gotta be willing to sign on to the fact that there are going to be some broken eggs, and you're just going to have to live with it.
All these years later, we don't know who wrote that letter. Some suspect that Monteagle knew about the plot, and he wrote it himself to cover himself.
Keep himself looking like a loyalist.
Yeah. So anyway, he took the letter to the intelligence service, and they started searching, and lo and behold, they found this guy, Guido, or Guy Fawkes, in the basement of Parliament with some fire, looking to set off some explosive on the 5th of November, 1605. From here, things just went downhill. Praise God, he was not able to blow up the Parliament.
Okay.
I'm not a fan of James VI and First. He was a moral monster, but murdering him is not cool.
Yeah. in something like that, you're creating two monsters because you're killing the monster that you needed to kill off, but you're making yourself a monster in his place.
And having studied how whenever there was a vacuum for the king, horrible problems.
See, this is where I feel Plan 2 was not thoroughly developed. Plan 1 was pretty solid. They came
Kill the
within a
king.
hair's breadth.
What's that?
Kill a king, and everybody that could help keep a king like him in place. We've got that.
Well, they were going
Next step.
They were going to kidnap the king's daughter, Arbella Stewart, and Elizabeth Stewart, and put her on the throne.
Okay.
She eventually became the wife of the Elector of the Palatine, and briefly she was Queen of Bohemia.
Yeah.
So they did have a plan. But again, when your plan is built on the deaths of hundreds of people, it's a terrible plan.
Terrible plan.
I'm just saying, for our show's purposes, it's a horrible plan. Having studied English history, this is not like in the top 10 of horrible plans of English.
Oh, I'm not saying that there aren't worse plans. There are much worse plans. But anyway, here's the worst part of the Gunpowder Plot.
Okay.
Is it the horrible masks that are owned by Warner Brothers?
No, that's just hilarious. All the anti-corporate anarchists who wear Guy Fawkes masks.
Is it the subpar effigies that they burn?
No. Well,
sometimes they're good, but
it's related to that.
Okay.
Because Catesby and Fawkes and all of their ilk were upset about the oppression of Catholics in England. After the Gunpowder Plot, all they did was make it worse. Catesby was killed in a gunfight. Fawkes and others were being hanged. So they got off relatively light. But the people they were supposedly trying to help, the Catholics they were trying to free from English oppression, they just made their lives worse. Parliament passed new legislation that further restricted the rights of Catholics and made the fines for not going to Anglican service and not receiving Anglican communion even higher. And Catholics would not be emancipated, not granted equal citizenship in Britain for over 200 years, until the 1830s.
You still can't be a Catholic and be the king or queen of England. You can be Buddhist, you can be Hindu,
You can be atheist,
atheist.
but you can't be a Catholic. It's really cool. Every couple of years, there's a story about another member of the royal family who gives up their place in line. Obviously, they were never going to sit on the throne anyway because they're like 14th.
I mean, unless it's like a King Ralph
34th.
thing. But,
Yeah, but it happens every couple of years that one of them will give up their place because they are received into full communion with the church. Because these days, nobody wants to be Anglican because it's a completely worldly church. One last thing on the Gunpowder Plot. We've just had an extremely contentious presidential election.
And we filmed this before we found the results, so hopefully they're not horrible that everything blew up.
Hopefully the world hasn't collapsed in on itself.
I say this with confidence. Approximately half the electorate are very pleased, but also very condescending and smug towards the other side.
Yeah,
and the
that's
other
right.
half of the electorate are inconsolable and convinced that the sky is falling.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
I'm
You
confident
say
that's
that about the electorate, but I think that's pretty much everybody.
I'm confident that's true, no matter how it turned out. But
It's the only way. It's the only way our elections work anymore.
with the
I miss the old man president.
Sure. With the negative consequences of, lots of societal tension, with a distinct lack of charity in our public discourse, there are some voices who are becoming more and more sympathetic to the idea of political violence as a solution to our problems.
It works even less now because it's much more divided. Spaces.
I beg you
And the violence only polarizes everything.
to
I'm just
take the
saying,
example of
there's
the
like
Gunpowder
200
Plot.
people in the presidential chain of command of if this one dies, then that.
Violence is not the answer. The most likely outcome, besides the fact that you're going to do horrific damage to your own soul and anyone you intend to harm, it's also most likely that you're not going to solve the problem you want to solve, and you're going to make things worse for the people you think you're helping.
Actually, in a best case scenario, you will make it worse for the people you are trying to help. More likely, you will make it worse for everybody.
Let us renew our commitment to charity, which doesn't just mean giving to the poor, but regarding every person you encounter as the child of God they are.
Yes. In cases in which you cannot interact with them, just unfriend them. Sometimes that's the most charitable thing.
Absolutely.
Or just mute them so you don't see their feed. There are many people where it's like, I have to love you in person. Unfollow.
Just be like me prior to COVID. Oh, we're talking politics now. I believe I hear somebody calling my name from the other room.
What? Of course.
Yep, gotta go.
I believe Jess is calling me. She's sitting right there. No, what's that, sweetie? Yeah. So, study history. Know the Gunpowder Plot. Know that it was a terrible, terrible idea that harmed everyone. And let's
not even never be forgotten.
Let's not forget, and let's not even remotely consider doing anything like that today.
Go down below, hit the like button and the subscribe to, and the bell next to it so you get notified when we have new episodes.
Follow Jess's suggestion. Comment with the much worse ideas from English history.
Yes, by all means. Give us all the worse ideas of things that could have gone on in English history.
The Warrior of the Rose, it sounds so pretty, but we're so evil.
It's so terrible. I really loved that movie until I learned about the history behind the name, and then went, ooh.
Everybody loved the 30-year Civil War.
The killing of your nephews.
Well,
a 30 yeah.
brats.
See, that's really the problem, is that it was a 30-year Civil War between family.
Cousins.
Yep. and we think we have problems with Thanksgiving.
And you thought your Christmas was difficult.
And we haven't gone to a family Christmas yet this year. And I don't know if we will, but
probably not.
No. We're going to do it by Zoom.
Don't worry. One day, family holidays will be awkward again.
I'm not looking forward to that.
And until then, remember to live your faith.
Love your faith.
And share that love. I think I know how to avoid taking Anglican communion in that case.
Are you going to pretend to have a heart attack every time you show up at church? Because that would be hilarious.
It's a big one. I'm coming, Elizabeth.